The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the desolate highway. Route was infamous among locals as the road to nowhere, a desolate stretch of asphalt cutting through miles of barren, forgotten land. It was the sort of place you only found yourself on if you'd made a wrong turn or lost your way. Few dared to travel it willingly, and those who did had a peculiar habit of disappearing. For Alex and Sarah, two college students with a taste for adventure, Route was the ultimate test of their courage. They had heard the tales, the legends whispered around campfires and over drinks in dimly lit bars. Stories of ghostly apparitions, eerie sounds that seemed to emanate from the very ground, and the most chilling of all, the inexplicable disappearances. They laughed off the warnings, chalking them up to small-town superstitions. As they hit the road that fateful evening, their excitement was palpable. The old rusted sign that marked the beginning of Route creaked ominously in the wind as they passed. Alex revved the engine of his beat-up Chevy, and Sarah adjusted the radio, searching for a signal. Nothing but static filled the car, a disconcerting silence that made the hairs on their necks stand on end. Miles passed by uneventfully, the landscape an endless sea of scrubby desert and abandoned structures. But as darkness fell, so did the temperature, and with it, the mood in the car shifted. Sarah shivered, despite the heater blasting warm air into the cabin, and Alex's grip on the steering wheel tightened. The road ahead seemed to stretch on forever, and the only light came from their headlights, which flickered ominously as they carved through the inky darkness. The air grew thick with tension, and even the radio seemed to sense the unease, emitting only the faintest whispers of eerie music. Just when they thought they couldn't bear the silence any longer, a figure appeared in the distance, standing in the middle of the road. Sarah gasped and Alex slammed on the brakes, bringing the car to a screeching halt. The figure was indistinct at first, shrouded in shadows, but as they approached, it became clear that it was a woman, her long, disheveled hair obscuring her face. Reluctantly, Alex rolled down his window, the biting wind rushing into the car. "Are you okay?" He called out to the mysterious woman. No response. Sarah's voice trembled as she whispered, "Alex, we should go. This is too weird." But before they could act, the woman slowly raised her head, revealing hollow, empty eyes that seemed to glow with an otherworldly light. She let out a guttural, inhuman scream that shattered the stillness of the night. Alex slammed his foot on the gas pedal, and the car roared to life, hurtling forward down the dark road. As they sped away, they could see in their rearview mirror that the woman was no longer alone. Shadows moved at the edges of the road, and eerie whispers filled the air, taunting and threatening. The road seemed to stretch on endlessly, the surroundings morphing into a nightmarish landscape of twisted trees and grotesque shapes. Panic set in as they realized that they were trapped en route, with no end in sight. Hours passed, but the road showed no mercy. The whispers grew louder, the shadows closer, and the night darker. Alex and Sarah's screams joined the haunting cacophony of voices that filled the air, their voices disappearing into the void. They had entered a world where time stood still, where the road to nowhere had become their eternal nightmare. The legend of Route had claimed its latest victims, two more souls lost to its malevolent grasp, destined to join the whispers and shadows that haunted its cursed path. A couple of years ago, my husband's father passed away, marking the beginning of this tale. Back then, he toiled through night shifts as a security guard, but the job didn't sit well with him. We were living in a cramped apartment complex that cost just under $1,000 each month, and times were tough. However, after his father's passing, a substantial inheritance came his way, including the family house. Once we had finished mourning, we decided to sell the house and use the proceeds to purchase a barn in Ohio. The barn was conveniently located, not too far from towns or cities. This arrangement allowed my husband to maintain his night shift work. Even with the newfound financial stability, my husband remained anxious, fearing that we might squander our resources, especially now that we lived in the converted barn house. Every evening at 7 p.m., he would depart for work, returning around 3 in the morning, except on weekends. During those hours, I found myself isolated in the barn house, surrounded by darkness and devoid of streetlights. The isolation often triggered strange and unsettling experiences. The most unnerving aspect was the feeling of someone's presence in the barn with me every night after my husband left. Our faithful dog, Rufus, a gentle golden retriever, would curl up at the foot of the bed. Even Rufus sensed something awry and would awaken every night, listening intently. The barn house boasted 2 floors, both downstairs and upstairs. The previous owners had transformed it into a dwelling, likely with the proper permits to profit from the land. When we initially came across it on the market, it seemed charming, but the evenings proved to be quite challenging. I usually stayed awake until 3 a.m., anxiously awaiting the sound of my husband's car approaching on the gravel driveway or the glow of his headlights through the barn windows. The gravel outside was notoriously noisy, amplifying even the slightest disturbance, whether it be a fox or a rabbit. The old wooden staircase, likely made from oak, added to the nightly disquiet, creaking with every step. Most nights I felt as though my husband were right there beside me, but eventually I would succumb to sleep's embrace. I couldn't stay up until 3 a.m. every night, as I had to rise at 7 a.m. for work. Nevertheless, my mind somehow kept me alert until his return. Rufus remained restless until my husband's arrival, his unease palpable. There was an unsettling air about the barn house. One night I was roused by unusual noises outside. I spotted car lights and heard tires on the gravel driveway. Ready to make space for my husband, I was about to shift in bed when I noticed something amiss. The headlights and engine were still on. As I pondered the situation, Rufus began acting strangely. His tail was not wagging, and he emitted low growls, tail stiffly raised. Panic started to take hold of me, my fingertips tingling and going numb as anxiety coursed through me. Summoning my courage, I slipped out of bed and peered out of the window across from it. I cautiously pulled back the curtains just a bit, peeking with one eye. What I saw was a car, but not my husband's. The headlights and engine were still running, and 2 men stood outside with flashlights, illuminating the lower part of the barn. Dread enveloped me as my heart raced. The 2 men suddenly directed their flashlights directly at my face. I gasped and instinctively retreated, letting the curtain fall. The sound of their car doors slamming shut sent a shiver down my spine. I feared the worst, violence or harm of some kind. I lay on the cold bedroom floor, paralyzed by fear. Moments later, I heard their car reverse out of the driveway, the gravel crunching beneath the tires. Summoning courage, I crawled to the window once more, cautiously parting the curtain. The car had vanished, having completely reversed onto the main road adjacent to our property. Our barn house was situated along a country lane, and we hadn't yet installed a gate, allowing easy access from the road. As the car disappeared into the night, relief washed over me. I remained awake for the rest of the evening and immediately called my husband. He rushed home from work, arriving 5 hours earlier than usual. In the aftermath of that frightening encounter, we decided he should resign from his night shift job. He soon found daytime employment, enabling us to enroll Rufus in a doggy daycare. Both of us began working full-time during the day, and we spent our evenings together. It was unfortunate that circumstances had to deteriorate to such an extent for my husband to give up his night shift job. We never discovered the intentions of those 2 strangers, or whether they intended to steal from us. Nonetheless, that harrowing experience prompted significant changes in our lives. We made adaptations that prioritized safety and togetherness, bringing us closer than ever,